Hello. Uh, I hope this is working. Hey, well, yeah, it's another Saturday morning. I just woke up again. Let's read some Chinese poetry. I hope the stream is working. I'm just checking the to see if this is actually live. Okay. All right. So today we have another 10 poems, these 5-character ancient verse or 五言古诗. So I hope this week is more varied than last week. If you remember last week, there was a lot of friendship parting poems, which I was kind of annoyed by. But I think some of you really like the one about the hermit where they climbed the mountain. So I hope we have more of those today, or more interesting stuff to talk about. So today, right, we have this poem by Chang at Wang Changling's retreat. So Su Wang Changling Ying Zhi. So Wang Changling is actually like a famous poet. So let's look more into his the context of this later lah. Okay. 清溪深不测，隐处惟孤云。松际露微月，清光犹为君。茅亭宿花影，药远姿台文。余意谢时序，西山鸾鹤群. Here, beside a clear deep lake, you live accompanied by clouds. Or soft through the pine the moon arrives, to be your own pure-hearted friend. You rest under thatch in the shadow of your flowers. Your dewy herbs flourish in their bed of moss. Let me leave the world, let me alight, like you, on your western mountain with phoenixes and cranes. Okay, so the context here is that, I think this poet Chang Jian is actually staying for a night at his friend's place. So Wang Changling, and it seems to be, so it's not just, I know it says retreat here, but so that's kind of vague. But in the Chinese, it says like it's I guess literally like secret or concealed or hidden residence. But this is usually for, I guess, for people who sort of like retreat from society and they go live in the mountain. So it's more of it has a certain vibe. It's not just like any old house. It's a very I guess it's a very Taoist vibes. Yeah. But it is so let's look a bit about the context of this actually. So I guess Wang Changling must be himself a hermit, right? I recall Wang Changling is a very famous poet as well, right? So Wang Changling is friends with all these other famous poets, and let's see if there's anything about where he lives. Okay. Well, not much. All right, so let's go back to the original poem then. But yeah, that guy's very famous, and I realized we read quite a few of his poems, some of which I didn't like. Okay, so Chang Jian and Wang Changling, they took the examinations, the royal examinations at the same time, which is why I guess how they became friends. And okay. I don't think it says Wang Changling is actually retreated though. That's kind of weird. So I mean yeah, so it's saying that Chang Jian did quit being an official and then went to live in like some mountain, right? And then Wang Changling, apparently he didn't do that, but somehow But Changjian, when he's uh coming back from this retreat, I guess that's when he's staying with Wang Changling. So that's kind of weird. So that's not what I would expect from the poem, the title. Well, but so that's the context. Now actually let's actually look at the poem itself. So okay, there's a clear deep lake, and this dude, Wang Changling, lives accompanied by clouds. Well, this is a bit more. Well, okay, I think I should translate this myself. So the first line is this: the lake is clear and it's deep and unfathomable, right? So it's you cannot, so it's so deep that yeah, you cannot even measure it. So I think it's more of a deeper, slightly different from the translation. And the second part, right, is that in this secluded place, the only thing there are only lonely clouds. So I think here he's actually emphasizing the solitude of the place. Yeah. And this is maybe all these Chinese poets are all introverts, but like solitude is a good thing, is a profound thing almost, which I guess also similar to let's say American poetry like Walden, right? Or I guess the Romans also like to always go to like some country retreat. So I think it's the sense of solitude in contrast to society, and because society, even though we need to live in, or we live in a society, right? But there's all this like there's just a lot of other things that you need to live with, like I suppose political intrigue, since they're all uh in the government. And so that there is this sense that, oh, we're gonna leave um all these messy things and just live next to a lake with clouds as my friends. So that's just, there is this sort of ideal, which is also a very Taoist ideal. If I feel like I'm going on too much about Taoism just in the first two lines, but there's certainly that sense of that, even though it's also inherent in Confucianism, which says, if times are bad, it's perfectly fine for you as a good person to just live in the mountains. All right, so let's go to the next line first. So 松寂路微云. So okay, so yeah, soft through the pine the moon arrives. To be your own pure-hearted friend. All right, this is pretty good translation. You rest under thatch in the shadow of your flowers. Your dewy herbs flourish in their bit of moss. Let me leave the world. Let me alight like you on your western mountain with phoenixes and cranes. That's a bit weird, I feel. Or the western mountain, it says in the context here that it is the place where Changjian actually was being a hermit, but it doesn't make sense that then why is he writing this like it's Wang Changling's house? I feel like there must be an error here. Let me check Wang Changling's Chang Jian's biography. Hmm. Well, that's not super helpful. All right, let me just search Shishan. Oh, so that's the Western Mountain. Okay, so it looks like he did live in Shishan, but well, I don't understand why he's acting as though it's Wang Changling's place, right? I think maybe this is a mistranslation on the English. No, that doesn't make sense. because even in this article, it says the first two lines is praising Wang Changling's the place where Wang Changling is sort of living and how it's a really great place. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense what the biography is saying that Chang Jian is the one who's living there, like officially. Huh. Strange, strange. I don't understand. Hmm. Actually, well, reading this actually gave me some inspiration though for understanding this poem because I think in some sense, right, why is this place why is this such a good place for um I guess spiritual cultivation? So it seems that in this poem itself is pointing to that, right? So the clear, deep lake. I think okay, I feel like I might be overreading, but it seems like when you're trying to cultivate yourself, you need to keep your mind clear and so free of like thought, right? So it's like meditating, and then um and maybe it's from there that you have these deep and unfathomable thoughts. Well, you're not supposed to think. You're not supposed to have conscious thoughts. Yeah, but at least the first two lines, right there, we're talking about the lake being clear, deep, and unfathomable, and then there are these clouds that are alone and secluded. It seems like they are not just describing the location, but also describing the state of the person, right? Yeah. And I mean, even in modern Mandarin, you have this saying like this 身不测, right? It's like 深不可测. Like someone is 深不可测 means like they are deep and like hard to understand, but they're like inscrutable, but in a good way. So, mm, okay. And I think this line actually is more it draws back again from this idea of like clearness. So 清光, the so at first it's like the soft through the pine the moon arrives, right? That makes sense. Then to be your own pure-hearted friend. The second line is saying the clear light is like Jun. I think this is like they're saying the clear light is like you. If we let me look at the here. Okay. So the clear light looks like a person, I guess. So not so Jun can mean things outside of what's here, like monarch, lord. It can also mean like you. So but I suppose people are interpreting it as meaning like a person. Yeah. For example, in Japanese, if you see like kimi means you, right? Like kimi no nawa, like the movie, your name. So kimi is written with this character. So that's also one way to read it. So at first I was tempted to read this as saying the clear light is like you, right? Which sort of links back to the first part, which says where we're reading the clearness as a state of the hermits, uh, like their mental state, a description of their mental state. But I guess even if you read it like this translator, which just says the light is like your friend, as presumably it is still kind of like what you're trying to aspire towards. Right? So the clearness is still being personified in some sort of positive way. So I think the reading, my reading still stands of the first two lines. And then, so you rest under thatch in the shadow of your flowers. Your dewy herbs flourish in their bed of moss. Let me leave the world. Let me alight like you on your Maston mountain with phoenixes and cranes. So I guess maybe the last two parts, about phoenixes and cranes, uh, I think it's sort of worth commenting on. I mean, phoenixes clearly is a very rare bird that don't exist in real life, right? Is a mythological creature. So I think there is this sense of like being unique or out of this world or different from the rest. And cranes, there is also a saying where like a crane like sort of stands out among the other birds, right? So I think both of these are sort of okay, it's not really a phoenix, I guess it's a luan, because a feng should be a phoenix, right? I wonder why luan he here, but in either case, we could read it as meaning like they're it's just sort of living in a different world though, such that there are these mythical birds, right? Well, I mean, a crane is not mythical, but they are associated with being different, and they're associated with like immortals also lah. So this one also says like this Luan He is a uh it's like the pet bird of a immortal of is Taoist immortals lah. So it's all more on the religious side. And it seems that okay, so if we're reading this Luan He as one thing, as the pet bird of the immortal, I guess it's also implying that Wang Ling has obtained this uh the cultivation of an immortal, right? It's like I mean, because if you're buddies with like the pet bird of the immortal, then you are the immortal, right? You're pretty much at that level. So that seems to be the implication here. Mm. But as for any deeper meaning, I don't really see it though. It's kind of Let's see. So I'm looking at the famous critics. Mm, so there is one interesting point here, which is that all the elements of the world, so earth, water, fire, and wind. It's weird that this corresponds to the Greek elements, but the elements of the world, right? They can all help me to transform. And so it seems that that matches what we said here, right? Where by describing it's almost by like observing the nature of the lake and like the clouds. Like he's getting some new insight into what it means to be a spiritually cultivated person. And which I suppose is the point of moving to these places, which is like you want to pick a nice place that sort of helps you develop yourself, I suppose. But I can't really read it past the next few lines. I can only see it in the first two lines. Like for the rest, I'm having trouble seeing more like a deeper meaning behind pure description. I guess there we did talk about the moonlight. That's okay. Then yeah, not really sure about the shadow of the flower. Right, and the rest is not super helpful. Yeah, I didn't see it. So most of them are just saying it's a good poem, which it is. I guess if there aren't any comments, I might just wrap up for this one. And my thought is that, at least one thought is that the English doesn't capture the vibe very well. But it is, and I don't think I fully understand the context of this because it doesn't make sense when he's saying like, I'm staying over at my friend's house when he has a house in the same mountain. Like, are you just trying to praise yourself? Like, it's like you say like, oh, my neighbor lives in such a good estate. Like yeah, he's your neighbor, right? So you live in the same estate. So, like maybe I'm missing something, but yeah, it's just if anything, it seems like Chang Jian is the one who's more of a hermit than Wang Changling, at least from this uh the information here. Wait a minute. Or is he or is Wang Changling not even there? Okay, okay. So this is Shimen so not Shishan, but he actually what so the context is saying that this place is at Shimen right? Which is where Wang Changling used to be. But in the poem, he's literally saying Shishan, and Shishan is a different mountain, which is where Changjian used to live. So it's like, what? I, hmm. Well, whatever. I think the ideas are still pretty clear, but oh, there's a comment from Danica, which is it's interesting that the poem descends from clouds to earth just by mentioning flowers and herbs at the end. Oh, that's interesting. Hmm. So it starts from the lake, right? And then it goes to the clouds and then the moon. Okay. And then it's looking down again. I think that's interesting. That's an interesting point, right? Because I imagine that makes sense if you're like looking at the clouds. I mean, looking at the lake, then it reflects the clouds. So it draws your eyes to the clouds and then the moon, right? Because it's in the sky. And then afterward, you're like, you put your head down and you see the flowers in the garden. And maybe you're looking in the distance at the mountains. So I think, wow, that's a very good point. So this is kind of like it's kind of a cinematic poem, and right. So then that we are like each of this is describing like where he is looking. So and we are sort of following along, like seeing what he sees, uh, uh as he is at that place. So yeah, well, that's a very interesting point. I didn't realize think of that. Yeah. Hmm. I'm not sure if there's a deeper meaning, but I think it's a very good poetic device. Like really puts you in that place, right? And I guess if the idea is that being in the place helps you uh spiritually cultivate yourself, then in replicating that for us, he's also giving us a part of that experience, lah, which is pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool if it works. Okay. Hmm. Now, if there aren't any more comments, maybe I'll just move on to the next poem first, just so we don't overrun to hit 3 hours again. Oh, okay, this is a long poem by Chen Can, right? Chen Can, ascending the pagoda at the temple of kind favor with Gao Shi and what's this? Xue Zhi. and 薛据. So 日高是薛据登慈恩寺浮屠. Okay, that's the pagoda. So 塔势如涌出，独高耸天宫，登临出世界。邓道谈虚空，突兀压神州。峥嵘如鬼宫，四角爱白日，七层魔苍穹，下窥指高鸟，俯听闻惊风，连山若波涛，奔凑如朝东，青淮夹赤道，公馆和玲珑，秋色从西来，苍然满关中，雾林北人上，万古清蒙蒙，镜里了可悟，圣音诉所踪，是将挂冠去，绝道资无穷。So the pagoda rising abruptly from earth reaches to the very palace of heaven. Climbing, we seem to have left the world behind us. With the steps we look down on hung from space. It overtops a holy land and can only have been built by toil of the spirit. Its four sides darken the bright sun. Its seven towers cut the gray clouds. Birds fly down beyond our sight, and the rapid wind below our hearing. Mountain ranges towards the east appear to be curving and flowing like rivers. Far green locust trees line broad roads toward clustered palaces and mansions. Colors of autumn, out of the west, enter advancing through the city, and northward there lie, in 5 graveyards, calm forever under dewy green grass. Those who know life's final meaning, which all humankind must learn. Henceforth, I put my official hat aside. To find the eternal way is the only happiness. That's funny. Sorry, what? What? Okay, why is this funny? So the eternal way, right, is like, so this is a reference to the Dao De Jing. Yeah. So the very first time, right, is 道可道非常道. So the Dao, the Dao that can be Dao. So Dao can mean the way or spoken, right? So the way that can be spoken of is not the eternal way. So that's the first line. So I think the Chang Dao here, the eternal way, is like the true way lah. Yeah, and I think he should be talking about Buddhism here. So even though this is just saying a pagoda at the temple, if we're looking at this, I mean the temple is called Ci En Si, which sounds very Buddhist, and this Fu Tu, right? If it means a temple, it's Fu Tu. This usually means like Buddha. This is like a transliteration of Buddha. Let me look at the explanation of this. But yeah, Fu Tu. So I'm 90% sure this is a Buddhism thing. Yeah. Okay, so this is Chang Dao. So they actually read this as 绝道. Oh, this is 绝道 what? Wait, did they misread this as well? Oh, okay. So this is not Chang. Oh, sorry, I was the one who misread it. So it doesn't really say eternal way. It just says the way, which is okay, that also works. I mean, it's referring to the same thing lah. So, I'm kind of curious about the Fu Tu thing. I'll just Google this. But because this either means Buddha or stupa, right? Fu Tu. Yeah, Fu Tu means Buddha. So it's because Fu, I'm Buddha, right? Buddha. That's how you say it in Sanskrit. There's like Bud, the Bud, it could be, for this Fu, there used to be end with like a T sound, I think. So wait, that can be right. It's not. Well, 佛陀ends with a T, right? Okay, Fatto. So it does it for interesting. This doesn't end with a T for Fu, but it does for this other one that we've went with, 佛陀, also Buddha. Sorry, this is like because I'm working on a video on this, so I suddenly went into a rabbit hole. But anyway, these are all alternative ways uh to say Buddha. So 佛陀, this is the what we use in like modern times. There's this other one also, 浮屠, which is like super weird because it literally means like I mean, if you read it literally, it means like floating butcher or something. But yeah, but you see the futu, right? It can mean the monk or Buddha or like the stupa, which is the tower itself. So yeah, to go back to the poem, it's about a Buddhist tower. Okay, random tangent. Okay, so let's actually look at this. So the pagoda, rising abruptly from earth, reaches to the very palace of heaven. So this is weird to me because I don't know, does the Buddha live in a heavenly palace? In Indian Buddhism, he just he just stops existing, right? He achieves nirvana and he's released from the cycle of rebirth. And I mean that's earlier Buddhism. And then later on, maybe you say he lives in like. So I'm struggling to figure out if it's like is it a reference to a Buddhist thing? If it's a heavenly palace, or is it like a Taoist thing? So it's saying like, look at my Buddhist tower. It can reach your like Taoist heaven, man. Like it's even better. Or I'm trying to see if there's some sort of interreligious comparison here. Not very clear to me right now. But all right. And climbing, we seem to have left the world behind us. So I think it seems that this is like we're not just reaching the palace of heaven, it's even leaving the world behind. And with the steps, we look down on hung from space. So I think that is an indicator that is saying it's better than Taoism. Even though, and then it sort of goes back in the end to use the same word, right? Tao from Taoism. And I think at this period, they should have their own word for nirvana. So at least maybe more context is like when Buddhism was first introduced into China, right? So that was like the Han Dynasty. That's Han Dynasty is like 200 BC to 200 AD. So around that time, it's sort of imported from the Silk Road from Central Asia and from India through Central Asia into China, right? And then when it was sort of first introduced, because these are sort of foreign ideas, what they did is first they used like Taoist terms to sort of match onto Buddhist ideas lah. So when you're saying like the Dharma, which is like the teaching, then maybe they'll say like the Tao or something. So but then afterwards there's this standardized translation where Dharma is like Fa. And another example is, let's say, Nirvana, which is literally it would mean like extinguishing, right? So it means it's a release from the cycle of rebirth because yeah, you extinguish these the chain of causation that that creates the cycle of rebirth. It's I'm not sure how much to go into, but the idea is that so Buddhism thinks there are no selves, right? There's no persistent idea of a self that persists through time. Then you're like, okay, if there are no selves, what is the thing that reincarnates, right? Like so they're saying that, okay, there are no selves because anything that you think is yourself, right, that is who you are. If you look closely enough, like it's composed of all these like separate parts, but there isn't what you actually think of as the self. There's nothing that matches to what you think. And so what we imagine to be a self is actually a false conceptual construction that doesn't really exist. And the idea is that when you get rid of that idea, you get rid of like a lot of your ego, and you also get rid of this fundamental sort of ignorance. So this ignorance is called avidya, or wuming in Chinese. So avidya is part of this 12-step process called the dependent origination, which is that if you have this sort of ignorance, it'll cause this thing, it'll cause that thing, and eventually it'll lead to like karma, and karma like causes you to be reborn, right? So the idea is that, okay, so you don't have a self, but the next life is connected to your current life because they are connected by causation. So the things you do in this life cause the effects in the next life, right? So that's karma. And yeah, so well, where was I going with this? Like saying, yeah, so nirvana is that, and when it first entered China, it's like, from what I explained, it's super complicated, right? Like, how are you gonna explain it to like all these people who have never heard of it before, who don't even have the words to say it, and usually they don't really care for foreign ideas. So the Buddhists are like, okay, let's just use Taoist ideas. So instead of so for nirvana, right, which means you stop reincarnating, we're just gonna use wu, which is like means like nothingness. So that's a very important concept in Taoism, right? The wu. And then they're like, okay, then the cycle of rebirth, we'll just call it the opposite, which is yo, which is existence lah. So wu and yo, it can be non-being and being, or non-existence and existence. So the Buddhists, they use it to mean nirvana and samsara lah. Samsara is the world of, I guess, rebirth. Yeah, so all that is just a context to say that there are ways to render Buddhist concepts using, like, there are many ways to refer to Buddhist concepts, and I'm sort of wondering, by the use of Tao here, which is what is the name of Taoism, right? This is the Tao in Taoism. So I wonder if doing this, he is trying to do a kind of comparison between the two teachings lah. Yeah, and well, we'll have to see since we're at line 4. Yeah, that was at least from the last video, I think you guys like this sort of context, so I hope that was helpful. Okay, so to move on, okay, so it overtops a holy land and can only have been built by toil of the spirit. Okay, it's kind of, I don't think there's a lot of talk of a holy land usually, so this is quite surprising. Right, its 4 sides darken the bright sun, its 7 stories cut the gray clouds. Birds fly down beyond our sight, and the rapid wind below our hearing. So this is really accentuating how tall they are, right? I mean, it's almost saying it seems to have left the world behind them. And I mean, I think part of the idea of building tall towers in the first place is that you are, just as you are physically elevated, you're also spiritually elevated. So I think this is the state he's trying to go for, where you're leaving behind, not just like the normal world, but even like birds and the wind that are usually in the sky. Yeah. And then mountain ranges toward the east appear to be curving and flowing like rivers. I guess he sees the curvature of the earth. That's pretty crazy. Far green locust trees line broad roads toward clustered palaces and mansions. Colors of autumn out of the west enter advancing through the city. And northward there lie, in 5 graveyards, calm forever under dewy grass. Hmm. Okay, so these are like describing the landscape, right? So he's sort of looking towards the graveyard. Okay. Hmm. Now then this is sort of the philosophical part. Those who know life's final meaning, which all humankind must learn. Hmm. So this is very, so he's looking at the graveyards and he's thinking about death, right? So life's final meaning, which all humankind must learn. And it's sort of this reflection on death that causes him to say, okay, henceforth I put my official path aside to find the eternal way is the only happiness. So, so this is kind of, so this is kind of Buddhist, but not really, I would say. So if you know the story of the Buddha again, so he is very famous, right? He sort of he was born a prince and sort of like all have all these worldly pleasures in his palace. And he went on these three some I guess four excursions outside the palace lah. First, I think he saw like an old person and then a sick person and a dead person. And then he was like, wow, life kind of sucks. Like life is full of suffering, right? And then the final time he went out, he saw a monk, and then he was like, wow, I want to be a monk or like a so not like a Buddhist monk, right? But it's just like a wandering seeker of the truth, you can say that. So someone who just leaves home and uh try to attain some spiritual cultivation and find a way to escape the suffering of this world. So I think this is somewhat of an allusion to that, in that he sees the graveyards, and from there he sort of says, well, okay, I need to, so all these worldly pleasures, like my official status, my status as a government official is not that important. And the only happiness is to find the eternal way. But I think here you could also give this kind of a Taoist reading, right? Because even though he is in a Buddhist temple, like Taoism, there's philosophical Taoism, which says you should just, I guess, follow the transformations of nature. So Zhuangzi would say, like, who knows if death is bad? Who knows? Why are we so scared of death? Maybe death is a good thing. So there's this famous story where like, uh, his wife dies, and then he's like playing the drums because he's like, maybe she's gone to a better place, right? Who knows? Why are we so scared of it? And but then for religious Taoism is sort of the pursuit of immortality. Yeah, and that one, so there's a lot of like making elixirs of life and magic pills to stay alive. So I think this could also be like a reference to like Taoism, right? Religious Taoism at least, because if it's more of a strictly Buddhist reading, then you would say he should be talking more about suffering and not necessarily about death. So I'm not really sure if this guy is really I'm not sure if what this guy has in mind is really that Buddhist. So let's see what maybe others have said about it. Oh, but okay, look, it seems that here it is using quite a few Buddhist terms. So let's take a look. There's 敬礼、了可悟、所宗。Well, he is using these. So there's this 敬礼, this clean teaching, clean reason, clear reason, and 圣因, I guess it's like dominant cause, even, or like good karma. I think it means good karma, actually. Yeah. So I think he's saying like if you understand I don't know, the pure teaching of Buddhism, then to accrue good karma, So this is a very different translation from that though, from the English one. There isn't a good, okay, here it is. All right, so for this, there's this other interpretation of the last two lines, which is the pure Buddhist teachings to totally realize them, totally understand them. Then the good karma, uh, that others that people always follow. Now I swear to leave my official post and to follow the Buddhist way is endless joy. I think, what this is it's really different, right, from what it actually says here about life's final meaning, which all humankind must learn. So the 敬礼, they translated it to final meaning when it should be a Buddhist talking about to know the Buddhist teaching, which and to accrue good karma. Yeah. Even then, but the emphasis on karma here, I think, betrays a rather. I sound like a snob, but like I don't think he's understanding the deeper part of Buddhism. I feel like he's still talking about karma now, but he isn't talking about emptiness, which I believe is more crucial at this point of Buddhism's development. So I don't want to go so much into the philosophical dispute, but at least the point is I guess he's going through like a religious experience at the top of this really tall tower. And he I guess imagine you're climbing up this really tall tower and you're like, wow, I'm sort of in a different dimension, right? I'm outside of the normal world and everything seems so small. And even my usual ambition seems so small, right? That's why he sort of, and what I truly need to care about is death, this thing that plagues everyone. And so now I'm going to forget about my trivial concerns and focus on learning to cope with death or transcending death. Yeah. So that's sort of I think that's what is going on here. And I think it's really written well. Because you start from like, okay, it says rising abruptly from the earth, right? And it's pretty fast. It's just like you go from earth and then you reach the palace of heaven, and now you're even past that. You're like in space almost. Yeah. So I think the first part is almost like it's rocketing us alongside him as we make this ascent. And then from there, then he sort of looks down at all the various things, and that is what prompts his reflection now. Yeah, I think. So I guess for me personally, I think this is more meaningfully read as like, I guess, a reflection of the transience of life, even though it's not like super profound in a philosophical way. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's good. It does reflect this sense of just seeing life from a different perspective. Yeah. I think it is kind of useful. I wonder if like I'm sort of bogged down with daily concerns, I should just climb a tower. Oh, Danica says the Taoist way seems more reasonable way to interpret this. Yeah. So that's my sense as well. Like his understanding is I don't think this guy understands Buddhism very well. Like I know he's a great poet and all, but it's a bit and he's using these terms, but I really don't think I think he's thinking more of Taoism when he's saying these things. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think there is something universal about this sense of religious feeling that especially when you are, I guess, in a high place. I don't know, like if you go to a skyscraper, climb like the Empire State, maybe it's a different kind of feeling. But I guess this is not really in a. You have to be really tall, and it has to be like has the vibe. It's a different vibe up. Yeah, because at first I was thinking maybe if I need some spiritual, I need a spiritual experience, I should just go up like a skyscraper, but I don't think it would work. Okay, let's go to famous critics. Oh, okay, quite a few. Mm. So they like they point out these two lines, which is when they're so it's already past, like you're sort of like all the way out into space, and then you're looking down and you look at the so it's looking down, you point at the tall, I guess, high flying birds, and listening, you hear the wind below you. So I think he says these two lines are really nice. I think so. It really does emphasize how tall you are, and so it's really this stretch of first four lines shows you how so you ascending, and then one, two, three, four, five, six. So it emphasizes that you are already. So maybe almost like the first four parts are like the motion, and then the next six lines is like you are up there. It's emphasizing you at that height. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. I don't see anything worth commenting on. So yeah. Mm, I think if aren't okay, some comments. Unfortunately, to go to the top of the Empire State Building costs money. Yeah, right. I guess I can't abandon worldly concerns if I need to pay the entrance fee. And then next, there's one. So can the rising of pagoda be associated with discipline towards the Tao or Buddhism? I think that's interesting. Especially because there's another famous poem. I think we read it before, where it's like it's also in a pagoda. I think oh man, no, it's in a tower. Is it Huanghe Lou? It's like Yellow Crane Tower, where it's like to ascend. The very famous line is like 更上一层楼, right? It's like you go up one level, like literally, it's like you're leveling up in life. So that's the sort of idea. But I'm not sure if Taoism would see it like that. Okay, I'm more familiar with the philosophy side, but maybe the religious side is different. But at least philosophy, it seems like it wouldn't be a very useful metaphor because it feels kind of constructed, right? Like if you're sort of going up. I think Taoism would say it's like you need to let go of things. I guess Buddhism as well, right? You need to let go of attachments. As for Buddhism, but I think there is this sense of progression. Well, there are two schools lah. There are, at least in later Buddhism, right? They're talking about enlightenment. There are two schools. One is sudden enlightenment. One is gradual enlightenment. Uh, so if it's sudden enlightenment, it's like so this is called some more Zen, where there's like, oh, this guy says something weird and profound, and then you're like, oh, I'm enlightened. So these are the Zen koans, right? The weird Buddhist stories. It's like, oh, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And you hear that, and then you're enlightened. So the point of that is like to, but one understanding of that is like it gives you all this like wacky stuff, and it transcends like your typical logical conceptual way of thinking. And once you transcend that, then you are suddenly enlightened. It's like all or nothing. Either you are not enlightened or you're enlightened. So there's sudden enlightenment, and then gradual enlightenment thinks that there are these stages that you work towards. And that I think is less popular, is less of a popular view. Okay, I won't recount the argument about that. But at least for but even in earlier Buddhism, there are other texts where they say like different stages of cultivation. So I would imagine it's quite plausible for that. I guess Taoism as a religion might also have that, because if you're like trying to become an immortal, I think there are things like you gotta eat certain things right, and then like eventually maybe you'll be able to take the right elixirs and stuff. So I think that is a good point. The rising of the pagoda, I think, but maybe it's not very emphasized in this poem, because you see, it doesn't talk much about the climbing, right? It's just like 4 lines while you're in space. So like it doesn't talk about like him climbing the pagoda. So even though it says climbing here, the third line is yeah, I guess it is climbing, but it's just a very throwaway kind of thing. So I think it is a good point, maybe, but not so. So in which case, the cultivation, even though it's part of the poem, is not like an emphasis. Yeah. So that's a very good observation. Yeah. Interesting. Kind of tell me if I'm talking too much about like philosophy stuff. I feel like I'm going on like extremely long tangents. Okay, but if there's nothing else, why don't we try going to the next poem? So I'll just close some of my tabs first. So this next poem is by Yuan Jie, to the tax collectors after the bandits retreat. What's wrong with the formatting here? Jeez. Let me. What? There's no way that the poem looks like this. Like, okay, so there's a preface. That's why there's this. Okay. So the preface goes all the way until here. All right, why don't I read the preface first? I think I need to do some translating. So, all right, so 人杰 to the tax collectors after the bandits retreat, 贼退士官吏并序. Right, so 并序 is together with the preface. Okay, so this is 癸卯岁, so this is a certain year. 西元贼入道州，焚烧杀掠，几尽而去。明年贼入攻永州，破绍，不犯此州边彼而退，岂力能制及虞？哦，这是虞 ，OK。盖蒙其相连而已。诸使何为忍道？征廉，故作诗一篇以示官吏。So what does this mean? So this year, what's this? 763. Then there are these bandits from Xiren. So that's I guess like Central Asia. So it's and so they came, they burned stuff, and they killed and they plundered, and almost And once that's done, then they left lah. Oh, they almost took the entire city, and then they left. And so next year, they are going to attack Yongpo. Oh, so the year after that, so 764, I guess. Then the bandits attacked Yongzhou, and then it took over this other zhou. Shaozhou. And so it says okay. But they do not but they do not cross the border of Daozhou, and they left. And then so okay, so they didn't, so they took these two places, right? Then they're like, oh, but they didn't take this third place. And then this guy saying, well, is this because the army of Daozhou is so strong that the bandits are scared? It's like, no, it's just because the bandits thought they were too pathetic. And then it says, so you officials, right, who are like I guess sort of like forcing people to join the military and like taking their taxes. So why are you still so heartless? So I wrote this poem in order to to speak to these officials. Yeah. So this is sort of the context. I think it's very interesting that he wrote the sort of the context within the poem itself. So yeah. Wow, it seems like pretty intense. I feel like with this kind of preface, it's going to be an intense poem. All right, so let's actually recite it. 稀岁逢太平，山林20年，全员在庭户，恫吓当门前。井睡有长期，日晏犹得眠。突然遭时变，数岁清戒瞻。今来点思君，山移又愤然。城小贼不图，山人贫伤可怜。是以县邻近，此州独健全。使臣将亡命，岂不如贼焉？今必争廉者，破之如火箭。谁能绝人命，以作时世贤？思日伪服解，饮甘自刺传。将家就余脉，归老江湖边。So these two are just footnotes saying that there are variations in the characters. So I think this yen should be I saw it just now. This one. And then this shi. I'm not sure what it could be. But yeah, so this is a fun thing about Chinese is like sometimes people can misread the characters, so it could mean something else. So different editions might have different people might say, okay, this is actually that character. So this becomes like, especially for older texts. So it's actually quite fun to figure out these readings. Yeah. All right, so for English, I still remember those days of peace, 20 years among mountains and forests, the pure stream running past my yard, the caves and valleys at my door. Texts were light and regular then, and I could sleep soundly and late in the morning. Till suddenly came a sorry change. For years now, I have been serving in the army, when I began here as an official. The mountain bandits were rising again. But the town was so small, it was spread by the thieves, and the people so poor and so pitiable that all other districts were looted, and this time, let alone. Do you imperial commissioners mean to be less kind than bandits? The people you force to pay the poll are like creatures frying over a fire. And how can you sacrifice human lives just to be known as able collectors? Oh, let me fling down my official seal. Let me be a lone fisherman in a small boat, and support my family on fish and wheat, and content my old age with rivers and lakes. Wow. Okay, so the idea is that so this must be what's this zhou? Daozhou, right? So this is the so it was already looted once, it seems. So so first it was already looted in the first year, 753. And then the bandits came the second time and they're like, yeah, we already got this. They have nothing left. And now, so this is how pathetic they are. He's saying, like, we are already in such a state. And now you, these officials, come and you want to take our, you still want to tax us like so much. Like, we're already screwed, right? So, do you imperial commissioners mean to be less kind than bandits? And yeah. So this, I think it's pretty clear, like, social critique. I'm not sure what else there is to say. And then just this last part is like, oh, let me just quit. And this is like, what's this called? Like when you resign to make a point, I guess. Forgot the name for it. But he's just like, okay, I can resign. And yeah, and let me be lone fisherman and support and just live a simple life. Okay, I see a question here, which is it common for poems like this to use only 5 characters for each line? So yes, at least for Tang poetry, most of them, let me show you the general one. So most of them are differentiated by like, all of them should have the same number of characters in the line. So you see these are like 5 character, 7 character, 5 character, 7 character. And then for some, I think there might be different, okay, I guess this one is not. So these are also all 5 characters. And then for this folk song style verse, this one is, so these ones seems like they have different number. Yeah. So yeah. So not all poetic genres have the same number of characters, but a lot of the Tang poems do. Later, when you go into the Song dynasty poems, then there's this genre called the Songci. So these are meant to be played along to music. So so depending on the melody, the length of the line is different. Yeah. But at least for what we're reading, the 300 plus that we're reading is almost all either 5 or 7 characters per line. Okay. And comments, oh, say, yeah, maybe it's like a resignation letter, which, yeah, right. And you say, you concur with the poem, you suffer from the same problems of high taxes. Yeah. It's like, what's that saying? There are 2 constants in life, death and taxes. 2 things are certain, right? I guess it's pretty interesting though. So this guy is the official and he's like, he's not the one collecting the taxes. It's like people from like the central administration, and that's why he's so like frustrated, right? Oh, let me just quit and let me just I don't want to be complicit in this. Yeah. Well, I mean, he can't just quit, right? He has to protect his people. So that's why, I guess that's why he's writing this poem. Just very interesting. Like imagine like instead of a petition, you write a poem. Like you write a poem like in like that rhymes, I mean, you write like a petition for like a protest sign that rhymes. Okay, I guess that's more common, but yeah. So I guess I feel like this is quite unusual, at least for like there's such a clear social message in the poem, and at the same time that he expresses the social message using a poem, right? It's like when you read poems, you wouldn't expect this, and when you expect a social message, you wouldn't expect a poem. So I think this is pretty interesting choice from this guy. So here's one thing that came across my mind, which is that, so at least from the Tang Dynasty, right, the officials are selected based on the exams, right? At least many of them are chosen by the exams. And the exam's a big part is the ability to write poems. So I wonder if this guy is thinking like, well, if all these guys know is like reading poems, I'm gonna write them a poem and to wake them up, to tell them what's really going on. So that's kind of interesting. It's like if I don't know, like okay, I can't even think of any comparison. But it's like it's like if you know this guy always drives down the road, then you buy a billboard on that highway. That sort of idea, right? You sort of it's like targeted advertising. Yes, targeted advertising. So that is pretty smart if that's what he was going for. Okay. Mm. This is a strange comment. It's just if you take this solely as a social commentary, then this is damaging to the thick Dao. I'm not sure what the thick Dao means here, but if you look at the first ending line, then you know uh the subtlety of his writing. What does that mean? So the first ending line, or maybe he's saying like there's the usual structure of like context and then emotional reaction. So that's usually that's how poems go. Um, so it's like you describe what's going on and you're like, oh, how you feel towards it. So maybe that's why he adds his own reaction to the end to make it more fitting to the poetic conventions. But I guess it's not clear what he means by the thick Dao here. So maybe it's the way of the art of poetry writing. Yeah, maybe. I mean, people like the poem enough to include it in this collection. So yeah, I say yeah, it's like maybe like if this targeted advertising is like paying for a sponsored post on Twitter. Yeah, it's like paying for that what like blue check mark on Twitter so you can uh dunk on Elon Musk or something. uh or like screw with like companies, right? Yeah, okay. I don't know. Not sure what else to say for this except it's a very tragic situation he's describing. I hope the people of Daozhou are well, they're all dead, but I hope things got better for them. I mean, they were dead for like at least 1,000 years, but yeah, I hope things got better. Okay, I guess I'll move on to the next one for now. Okay, so this guy is Wei Yingwu. Interestingly, like the rest of the poems for today are all written by him. So he has a lot in this genre. This one, entertaining literary men in my official residence on a rainy day. Sounds so pretentious. Okay, so君斋语中与诸文士宴集，兵卫僧化己，宴请凝清香。海上风雨至，逍遥池岸凉。池阁凉。凡阿尽消散，嘉宾复满堂。自愧居处宠，自愧居处宠。未睹思民康，理会是非宜。信达行机望，鲜肥属实境。蔬果性渐长，浮饮一杯酒，养灵今日章。神欢体自清，意欲临风翔。屋中 圣文史，群燕今望洋，方知大藩地，岂曰财富强。Outside are insignia shown in state, but here are sweet incense clouds, quietly ours. Wind and rain coming in from sea have cooled this pavilion above the lake and driven the feverish heat away from where my eminent guests are gathered. Ashamed though I am of my high position, while people lead unhappy lives, let us reasonably banish care and just be friends enjoying nature. Though we have to go without fish and meat, there are fruits and vegetables aplenty. There we bow, we take our cups of wine, we give our attention to beautiful poems. When the mind is exalted, the body is lightened and feels as if it could float in the wind. Suzhou is famed as the center of letters, and all you writers coming here prove that the name of a great land is made by better things than wealth. Interesting. Okay, so my comment was like, oh, this seems kind of like pretentious. I think he also recognizes that, right? So he says, ashamed though I am of my high position while people lead unhappy lives. I think he does feel kind of guilty that like people are suffering, and then he feels like, wow. But I think he thinks he's still justified in doing this because everyone needs a breakup and they're not being too extravagant because they don't even have fish and meat. So just like fruits and vegetables. And I guess wine. Yeah. So, that's really interesting though. Okay. Maybe let me just look at the context of this. I'm not sure why the people are suffering. Is there a famine or something? Okay, so this, wow, they're saying there's a Taoist reference here. Really, I was thinking of that, but I wasn't sure. Okay, that is the Taoist reference. Okay. So anyway, so it was saying that he does feel quite ashamed. And then so there's this line, while people lead unhappy lives, let us reasonably banish care. So here it's the care that what is translated as care is 行迹 here, which means like footprints, literally. So I mean, if you know Chinese, like on the left side, this is literally 足, right? 足, which means foot, for this character. And I think the footprints here usually it means like institutions, and the idea is that there's this famous, okay, another long tangent coming, but so there's Zhuangzi, the famous Taoist philosopher, and then there's a lot of philosophy, right? Chinese philosophy is done in commentaries to these famous texts. So there's this great commentator called Guo Xiang, who wrote like the definitive commentary to Zhuangzi. So Guo Xiang thinks he sort of coined this concept of footprints, or traces, because so this idea was expressed in like one of the Zhuangzi chapters, but it wasn't really developed. But essentially, Guo Xiang was trying to resolve the problem of like if Taoism is all about like spontaneity, right? Then how do we deal with where's the place of like institutions in our society? What's the point of laws and all this stuff? Can't we all just be spontaneous, right? And he's saying like, well, all these institutions, they're like they are the footprints of like the great sages. So those sages were just like being spontaneous, and then the people in trying to imitate them, they sort of formulated these laws and rituals and customs up. And so, and Guoxiang would say, well, let's just forget about this stuff and let's just be spontaneous. Like they still have some worth because they are sort of almost like records of like these great men, but you cannot reach their level just by following these footprints up. And so this is sort of what's going on here, where he says like, we're gonna forget these footprints by, I guess, by writing poems and like enjoying ourselves. But then my question is, then how does that link to? So is that your reaction to like the suffering of the people? You just forget about it? It's like, what? I don't know. Maybe he thinks by doing this, then you have greater insight on how to solve the problems. But I don't know. Now it seems very self-indulgent again. Like even though just because you acknowledge that you're being self-indulgent, it doesn't mean that you're not self-indulgent, right? It doesn't excuse you. It's like some guy is like, I don't know, some guy like he's dying of thirst. He's like, oh, can I have some water? It's like you just say, oh, look at me, not giving a dying man some water, and then you walk away. Like just because you pointed it out doesn't make it acceptable. You're still terrible, right? So not really sure what to make of this. Like I guess, yeah, it's sort of weird that he pointed that out if he's just gonna sweep it aside. He's pointing out the suffering of the people if he's going to sweep it aside. Maybe different sensibilities lah. Yeah. Yo, Karma says, have you tried just being happy? Lol. Yeah, man, just stop being poor. Have you just tried? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This poem rubs me the wrong way. But maybe but I guess I don't want to blame him too much because everyone needs a break, right? And it doesn't look like they're being too wasteful. So maybe he is being reasonable in banishing care for the moment. So yeah, okay. I don't feel like I have much else to say for this. It's kind of, even for the famous critics, I don't see anything. They say it's pretty well written. And yeah. This guy says, well, this is the best poem of the generation. Really? I don't know. I think I'll just move on. This rubs me the wrong way. Okay, let me close some tabs first. So this next poem, by the same guy again, Wei Yingwu, setting sail on the Yangtze to Secretary Yuan, 出发扬子，纪元大校书. It's a pretty short poem. So, 凄凄去亲爱，烦烦入烟雾。归捉洛阳人，残中广陵树。今朝为此别，何处还相逢？还相遇？世事波上舟，颜回安得住？Wistful away from my friends and kin, through mist and fog I float and float, with the sail that bears me towards Luoyang. In Yangzhou, trees linger bell notes of evening, marking the day and the place of our parting. When shall we meet again and where? Destiny is a boat on the waves, borne to and fro beyond our will. Okay, wow. I think first thing I noticed is I quite like the where it's like Qi Qi and Fan Fan, right? When they repeat the characters. I just think it's like a very nice like poetic device. Yeah. So, and these two are a clear parallel then. So Qi Qi Xu Qing Ai. So sorrowfully I part from my loved ones. And then Fan Fan floatingly, generally. Well, anyway, so in a state of floatiness, I enter the mist and fog. So it's a very close parallel. See the qi qi fan fan, and then chu to go, ru is to enter, and then qing ai is like dear and loved ones, and then like mist and fog. So these are all nouns, and so it's a very close parallel couplet here. Then the next part, just drink some water. So in Yangzhou, trees linger bell notes of evening. What does that mean? When shall we meet again and where? Oh, sorry, marking the place, day and the place of our parting. When shall we meet again and where? Destiny is a boat on the waves, borne to and fro beyond our will. So I guess the last metaphor of the destiny as a boat, it sort of works well with the opening couplet. But this is a letter to Secretary Yuan, right? So is Yuan the person he's leaving behind? Or is he setting sail to Secretary Yuan, right? So let's see. So he's leaving his friend. He's leaving his friend behind. Okay. So it's a letter to Secretary Yuan, but it's about him setting sail away from him. Okay, so then he's going to Luoyang. Yeah, to Yang from Yangzhou. I wonder what you guys think of the metaphor of destiny as a boat. I mean, it seems like a boat. You can control a boat. But I guess it's the specific emotions. Or so the question is Suzhou the same place that's near Shanghai today? Not very sure, but if it's the same name, it should be correct. Because most of the names are preserved from like ancient times. Yeah, so Suzhou. And then you also asked, is he dying? I don't think he's dying. I think he just got what's that called? He getting like sent to a different position. Since at least if you were working in the government at that time, they send out sort of like we're dispatched to a certain like province or something, right? So sometimes the central administration will be like, okay, your time here is done. Let's move you to another place. So that might be what's going on. Or he just has some official work that forces him to go to Luoyang. Yeah. And he's just like, yeah, so he has to go. I guess maybe that ties back to the metaphor of the boat, because there's the boat, like there's someone driving the boat, right? There's someone sailing the boat, but it's not him. He's just a passenger. So maybe it's that sense of like he's not the captain of his life. Like he's being dispatched somewhere else by the central administration. Yeah. That's interesting. One more thing I do want to understand is what does it mean for the trees to linger bell notes of evening? Huh. 小钟. I wonder what this. Do they actually have a clock to? Do they actually have a clock to um tell people of the time? Okay, wow. I guess so. So that's why he hears the ringing in Yangzhou. I think it's a very powerful image though. Just the idea of the bell ringing and there's just this echo. Feels like it's a kind of sound that sort of stays in your ears, right? It stays with you. And it's like the thing English is like, for whom the bell tolls, right? It feels like a very powerful image of like the sound just has that. It's just such a large sound. So I think it makes sense that it sort of matches the momentousness of this occasion of him leaving. Yeah, I like this. I like that metaphor. I see that you say that, oh, the trees ringing bell notes of evening made you think that he was dying. Yeah. Yeah, it does sound kind of like that, right? When you put it like that. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure. I think from the context, from the other stuff, I think he's still. Yeah, I think he's just being dispatched somewhere else. Yeah. So maybe if I just look finally at the uh famous critics, we have oh well, nothing useful. They just say it's very good. Okay. Then maybe we'll move on to the next one. Oh, moving through this guy's poems pretty quickly. So a poem to a Taoist hermit, what? Quanjiao Mountain. I think it's the hermit in Quanjiao Mountain. All right. So 寄全椒山中道士，今朝君斋冷，突念山中客。见底数尽心，归来煮白食，日待一瓢酒，远未风雨息，落叶满空山，何处寻行迹？My office has grown cold today, and I suddenly think of my mountain friend, gathering firewood down in the valley, or boiling white stones for potatoes in his hut. I wish I might take him a cup of wine to cheer him through the evening storm. But in fallen leaves that have heaped the bare slopes, how should I ever find his footprints? Wait, does he actually have potatoes or there's like actually white stones? Like I don't think he can eat rocks. What? As to heat the potatoes or what? No way. He eats white. Oh, no way. He freaking eats rocks. So there actually isn't a mention of potatoes in the poem in the Chinese. And apparently this guy is famous for. Okay, no. Oh, so it's another. Uh, okay. So this is actually a story from another collection which says there's this Mr. Whitestone who eats whitestone for as rice, basically like rice. So his friend doesn't actually eat white stones, but it's just to uh it's just a way to say that he uh lives on a very stringent diet, let's say. Okay. So well, I don't think any I hope no one in this world has had to eat white stones for food. Like just eat literally anything else. Okay. All right, so his office has grown cold. So he is in his cozy office at home, and he thinks of his mountain friend. Very strange phrase. It's the hermit lah, right? And he's gathering firewood and like making kind of a not so savory dinner. And it's like, oh, I wish I could have a drink with him. Oh wow, and it's an evening storm as well. That's kind of rough. But in fallen leaves that have heaped the bare slopes, how should I ever find his footprints? Hmm. I think this is pretty deep. So if you remember the discussion of footprints, right, for the previous poem, so there is this idea that, mm, like footprints, at least for a certain interpretation, like the footprints are bad. So not so meaning like if you're a totally spontaneous person, you're reaching the Taoist ideal, then uh so footprints are what other people think of you, but because you don't think of so the footprints are like sort of creations of lesser minds almost. So I think this idea is like, where can I even find his footprints is very I would say his very strong Taoist flavor, where it expresses a kind of Zhuangzian doubt. I feel like this guy has been reading Zhuangzi. Like that's my sense. Because it's not because Zhuangzi is kind of like he's always like very skeptical. He's like, we don't know this, we don't know that. So if this guy he goes and write, nowhere can I find his footprints, that is a certainty, right? So that would not be very Zhuangzian at all. But when you say like, where can I find his footprints, right? So not how should I ever like. I mean, here literally is like, in what places can I find his footprints, right? I think this is very. It's just super Taoist. I'll say. Like I really like this last two lines. Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you could even see the empty the also the fallen leaves fill the empty mountain. Part of you could say the empty mountain, the emptiness is a Buddhist reference, but I think with the last one, it's really just about given the context. I think the emptiness is not a Buddhist reference here. It's just about the kind of solitude, and he's almost at one with nature, right? It's like he's not treading on the earth anymore. You know what I mean? It's like he's like floating. He's not even in our plane anymore. That's the level of uh this sort of what's being implied here. Yeah. So I really like this poem, this last two lines. Okay, so there seems to be a common theme, a comment. There seems to be a common theme. People with powerful positions and wealth wishing they lived a more simple life. Yeah, I think, yeah, so that is super common. Yeah, I totally agree. Mm. And part of me wonders like, or it's or this is also true, let's say in Roman times, right? They're always like there's this contrast between like the urbs, the city, and the rus, which is like the countryside. And they all have all these rich Roman senators all have like villas in like the countryside. But at the same time, it's like they want to have the simple life, but maybe it's only useful as a contrast to their busy life, you know? I do kind of wonder how many of them like if they only lived a simple life their entire life, they would be like they would actually be happy. Yeah. So I totally agree with your point. I'm just sort of I don't know, I'm just like, wow, are they all for real? I'm not really that convinced. Yeah. Interesting part of their psychology, right? Hmm. Oh, interesting comment. You said, so for this poem, he seems concerned about his friends in the mountain, but it's almost as if he's jealous of that life in nature. Yeah, I totally agree on this with this as well. I think mm, right. Because I guess at first he said, wow, it's kind of cold. Like, I wish I could give him some wine. Because the guy's poor, right? Like almost like eating rocks. It's like, so I wish I can give him some wine and maybe some shelter through the storm. So I think the first part, right, is sort of like emphasizing like, oh wow, his life kind of sucks. Like I'm in a better position here. But then I think the last two line really flips it around where he's like, but he's like, wow, but he's not even he's on such a much higher level than me that these things probably wouldn't even phase him. So I think it's kind of maybe less an admiration of his life, but admiration of the hermit's like spiritual ability. Yeah. And your comment is like, yeah, most people want something different from what they have. Right. So I guess right, I guess yeah. So I think what I wanted was to say was is like the whole grass is greener thing, which I should have just said that instead of the whole long-winded explanation. But yeah, I really like this poem though. I think there's just the very interesting twist is really yeah, just very Taoist, very Taoist. Okay, let's see some famous critics. Um, oh, okay, here it is. Right, they also point out the last two lines. They're like, wow, it's good, right? It's really good. Mm, wow. Yeah, they all think it's good, and I agree. So I guess that's that. Okay, let me clear up some tabs and we'll go to the next one here. So it'll be correct, right? Yeah, that's right. That's right. So here, by the same author, same poet, on meeting my friend Feng Zhu, Feng Zhu in the capital, 长安日冯柱，客从东方来，衣上霸凌雨。问客何为来？采山阴埋伏。明明花正开，洋洋燕心如。昨别今已春，冰丝生几缕。Sorry. All right. Out of the east you visit me with the rain of Ba Ling still on your clothes. I ask you what you have come here for. You say, to buy an axe for cutting wood in the mountains. Hidden deep in a haze of blossom, swallow fledglings chirp at ease, as they did when we parted a year ago. How gray our temples have grown since then. Since then, I believe. Hmm. So I guess he just ran into his friend. Oh no. So there is a deliberate visit. So his friend comes from the east. I guess he was still on the trip. He only just arrived because he says the rain of Baling on his clothes. No, I guess not a deliberate visit because he only came to buy an axe. And hidden deep in a haze of blossoms, well, things chirp at ease, as they did when we parted a year ago. A year ago, how great our temples have grown since then. How much can your how fast can your hair turn gray in like a year? That's that's kind of strange. Okay. I guess it's more of a playful remark. I don't think it's pretty deep. I don't think this is a very deep poem. It's just like a cute poem. Like oh, I ran into my friend. How nice. Uh let's preserve this memory. Okay, and he says, wow, we sure have it's just like wow, we sure have changed. Time sure flies. Not really sure what if there's a deeper point to this. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, and there's no famous critics. It's just like even those who do not understand poems also know this is good. Okay, I don't think really. That's kind of a strange comment. Yeah, actually, I have nothing else to say. If you guys have anything, okay. So could temples mean mines in this context? Let's see. I think here, so literally, what does it say? I guess temples is, wait, is it here? It's the side of your head, right? So how great our temples have grown since then. I think here there's probably, so you're saying could it be like our minds have grown gray? Oh, how gray? Hmm. I probably wouldn't read it that way because there's just nothing else in the poem that sort of mentions that unless he's like you've grown dumb from cutting wood all the time. I don't think so. I feel like this is quite different because it's the first time we have like an encounter for such a trivial reason, like buying an axe. I guess his friend must be living in as a hermit, as a recluse. Because who else would be? Because if they're rich, they wouldn't need to cut their own firewood, right? Or they wouldn't need to buy their own axe. Like I don't know, their servants would buy it for them. So, I think it's a cute poem. It feels like, yeah, it's like running to your friend at the at IKEA or something. Oh, I need a new I don't know, bedroom cabinet, that kind of vibe. So, okay, maybe I'll move on to the next one. Wow, we're really going through his poems fast. So, 韦应物, mooring at twilight in 鱼夷. Um, is this 须夷 for okay, never mind. But 西次须夷县，落帆斗淮镇，停访灵姑驿，浩浩风起波，明明日晨曦。人归山郭暗，雁下庐州白。独夜忆我是秦关，厅中未眠客。Furling my sail near the town of Huai, I find for harbor a little cove, where a sudden breeze whips up the waves. The sun is growing dim now and sinks in the dusk. People are coming home, the bright mountain peak darkens, wild geese fly down to a mountain of white weeds. At midnight, I think of a northern city gate, and I hear a bell tolling between me and sleep. Interesting. So he was sailing, right? And then he found a place to dock dock his boat, and then there's a breeze, and it's sort of growing dark. People are coming home. Well, geese fly down to a mountain of white wheat at midnight. I don't. So he's already back home. He's asleep, and he hears a bell. So is this like, what's the point of this? Having a bit of trouble. Oh, sorry, one more comment for before, which is life got boring because they don't live near each other anymore. So that's for the previous poem. Yeah, that's possible. That's why you think their minds have gone gray, is it? Because there's no like intellectual stimulation now. Okay, that's interesting. Hmm. Okay, so for this next poem, I don't know. I don't know. Not sure what to talk about here. It's interesting that he's sailing. I guess he's on a boat, and then I guess everything just people are just going home. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, this is something about missing home. Oh, okay. Oh, because he's a traveler. Right, because if he because it's not his house, this is just some random town. Okay. So all these things are so it's like the people are coming home and the wild geese are also going to their home, right? And at midnight, he's thinking of, I guess, his place, the northern city gate. Yeah, okay, so he's thinking of Chang'an, I guess. And then I guess the bell, I don't think there's a bell in the town. So maybe the bell is from like his home. Like he's just imagining the bell. Interesting, interesting. Okay. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Hmm. I like the way he sort of uses so both the people and the geese are going home. So it feels like I think it's almost like he's the only one who is uh away, who is out. I think the sense of loneliness is because that's the sense of loneliness that's sort of keeping him up late at night. Right. That's why it's this 听中未免客. So he is the guest. He is visiting. Interesting. I like this. Mm. And we have the same image again of the bell. This like huge sound that sort of lingers, right? Because when the bell is like dong, it's gonna stay for like I don't know, a minute, a few minutes. So I think it's that sense of I think it's a good metaphor for a longing, the sound of the bell. It's just this because sort of a low, like those big bells, they're very like low pitched, sort of like it's sort of just there, but so it doesn't overpower everything, but it's always like there and almost sort of like pervades everything. I think it's a very good metaphor for longing. Yeah. Wow. Interesting. Hmm. Okay. Maybe to the next one. Oh yeah, the famous critics didn't say anything super useful, but let's see again. Yeah, nothing. Wow. I hope it doesn't feel like I'm rushing through these poems, but okay, you asked, is there a deeper meaning to Northern City Gate? I think it's let's see, 秦关. I think it's just a place from his home, but I'm not Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just a place to his home. So Qing here, the northern gate, the Qingguan is like literally the Qin gate, and Qin is the first dynasty of China. But I don't think it's trying to draw on that because yeah, I just don't see the typical associations of Qin is like, I mean, you could say it's the first dynasty, so it's kind of like how his home is where he was first born. But usually the idea of Qin is more like it's like this very tyrannical, oppressive state. So I don't think that's the so I probably wouldn't read that uh that yeah, those connotations for this poem. Yeah. Interesting point though, because it's not so because it doesn't literally say northern city gate. This is Qingguan. So this is referring to the specific gate in Chang'an in the city. So I think that that's a good point. There's also that is that you're name dropping this very specific thing and it really grounds it, right? So it's like yeah. So I think that really I guess that's the only place where it's name dropped. Everything and is just that and the Huai town. And maybe the fact that the two of them are pinpointed so specifically also emphasizes the difference between them or the distance between them. So yeah, wow, that's a good observation. Interesting. Hmm. Interesting. Okay. Uh, okay, maybe I'll just go to the last two. Getting kind of tired of my voice, so I have to wrap it up soon. All right, so another poem by this man, Dongjiao, east of the town. 李舍居中年，出郊广旷清暑，杨柳散和风，青山淡雾绿，依从是自弃，人见还复去。微雨霭方圆，春究明何处？乐幽新履止，尊是机犹惧。终罢思结庐，莫木木桃真可熟树。Wow, he's using a lot of difficult words here, as you can tell from all my uh checks, pronunciation checks. Okay, so from office confinement all year long, I have come out of town to be free this morning, where willows harmonize the wind and green hills lighten the cares of the world. I lean by a tree and rest myself or wander up and down a stream. Mists have wet the fragrant meadows. A spring dove calls from some hidden place. Of quiet surroundings, the mind is at peace, but beset with affairs, it grows restless again. Here I shall finally build me a cabin, as Tao Qian built one long ago. So Tao Qian is another famous poet. I think he's also kind of a reclusive guy. Let's see. Tao Renming is his other name. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's a pretty famous recluse. So okay, let's go back to this. Willows harmonize the wind. That's pretty interesting though. Yeah, so he sort of leaves the first two lines is like where he's leaving, and now he's coming to this place where willows harmonize the wind. Sounds very yeah, I mean you can tell he's using very elevated language, right? For based on me not knowing many of the words. So let's see. Green hills lighten the cares of the world. I think it's his own cares, not of the world. So the green hills lighten his cares. Then I lean by a tree and rest myself, or wander up and down a stream. Mists have wet the fragrant meadows. A spring dove calls from some hidden place. With quiet surroundings, the mind is at peace, but beset with affairs, it grows restless again. Here I shall finally build me a cabin. Okay, so here is almost describing all these things. And only the last two lines, he's like, okay, I'm gonna build a cabin that Tao Qian built. And I guess he will live there. Okay, with quiet surroundings. Okay, but beset with affairs, it grows restless again. So the turn really comes, I guess, the fourth last line. So first it's like, okay, it seems like he's pretty chill. And then he's like, well, okay, it's because I'm here that I'm chill. But I guess I'm not sure if he's saying his mind is restless when he's back at his office, or is like even when he is there, because the affairs still follow him. Like he's still thinking about it. That's why he's still being very restless. But then he concludes, okay, I'm gonna settle here, maybe have like a vacation home here. I don't think he's gonna quit his job, so probably at most it's just like a temporary place. I think, yeah. Not really sure what to make of this. It seems like kind of the same themes as before. Let's look at others' commentary. I guess it's interesting that he does have a name drop at the very end. It's like, it's not just like he wants to build a cabin, full stop. It's like, I want to build a cabin, just like what Tao Tian did. Tao Tian. I guess he's like, maybe he's saying that because Tao Qian, I think he did find some inner peace. He's like, well, I don't think I can do it on my own because it's still, even if as I'm here, my mind is still restless. So I need to go even further. I need to follow what Tao Qian did. Which, if you take a very strictly Taoist reading, that's actually not good, right? Because you're like, you're not being spontaneous, you're copying another person's spontaneity. So in some sense, it's a indication of his lack of spiritual cultivation, that he's trying to copy what others have done. Yeah. So I think that's okay. That makes it more interesting. So that's the psychological state here, where he's really trying to be more chill, but all he does is ending up by making plans, right? Like, isn't it funny? He's like, he's not enjoying nature. He's like, oh, I gotta build a house. Yeah, I gotta build me a summer house here. Like, he's not living in the moment. So I think it is symptomatic of his general vibe. Yeah. So yeah, I guess it does kind of end up being a funny poem here. And just said maybe this is another grass is greener situation, wanting to leave his busy city life for quiet nature. So I completely agree. And it's funny that the same feeling was so common so long ago in history, but still here today. Yeah, yeah. It's really I think this guy's being a bit FOMO. His fear is like, oh, I'm missing out on, being in nature like uh other famous poets. So yeah, it really, I don't know, this is very funny. This is very, very funny poem to me. He's still really trapped in his way of thinking. So he's not really getting the point of being in nature, I guess. Yeah. And the famous critics, no one said anything, apparently. So I guess they also thought he was not very spiritually cultivated. All right, drink some water, and maybe we can move on to the final poem of today. Okay, any more thoughts from you? FOME, fear of missing enlightenment. Well, that's really good. That's really good. Yeah, man, I got foamy, foamy. All right. Oh, wow, this is interesting. To my daughter on her marriage into the Yang family. Wow. Dang, this is cool. 宋杨氏女，永日方戚戚，出行复悠悠。女子今有行，大江溯轻舟。耳背枯无带，抚念亦辞柔。又为长所欲，两别泣不休。对此节中长，一往难复留。自小缺内训，是孤以我忧。赖兹托令门，人序孰无由？贫贱诚所上，自从启代州，孝公尊妇道，容止顺其由。别离在京城，见尔当何秋？居闲始自浅，灵感突难收。归来是有幼女，灵泪人应流。My heart has been heavy all day long because you have so far to go. The marriage of a girl away from her parents is the launching of a little boat on a great river. You were very young when your mother died, which made me the more tender of you. Your elder sister has looked out for you, and now you are both crying and cannot part. This makes my grief the harder to bear. Yet it is right that you should go. Having had from childhood no mother to guide you, how will you honor your mother-in-law? It's an excellent family. They will be kind to you. They'll forgive you your mistakes. Although ours has been so pure and poor that you can take them no great dowry. Be gentle and respectful, as a woman should be, careful of word and look, observant of good example. After this morning we separate. There is no knowing for how long. I always try to hide my feelings. They are suddenly too much for me. When I turn and see my younger daughter, with the tears running down her cheek. Wow. Wow. It's so different from anything else we've read. Wow. Oh, damn. I like this. The marriage of a girl away from her parents is the launching of a little boat on a great river. Wow. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's all here, right? It's just wow. Look at this. After this morning we separate, there's no knowing for how long. I always try to hide my feelings, but they are suddenly too much for me. When I turn and see my younger daughter with the tears running down her cheek. Wow, that's crazy. Oh, damn. Yeah, I have nothing to say. It's just the poems is everything. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Mm. Oh, this is an interesting point. It says, oh wow. Because it says that the mother passed away when they were young, right? And it's like, wow, it's like, I mean, obviously he loves his like late wife. So it's like looking at them, that he sees his wife in them, right? Like, wow, damn. And he says, even though he was an official for many years, but he actually didn't have much money. So he couldn't even afford like a good dowry. So he couldn't, because when at that time when a woman marries into the husband's family, you have to give like the dowry, right? Like money for like, oh, you're gonna support her for the rest of her life. Like, wow. I mean, this is so wow. I don't know, man. I'm trying to find something to say, but it's just like you can see is he's worried about her, but he's also very proud of her, right? He he's telling her like, just be careful about these things, but he also knows like she's more than capable of doing it. So it's just a very simple reminder. And I think he also feels a sense of, but he also feels like, wow, he couldn't have raised her as well as he would have liked because like like his wife passed away, right? Just oh, it's just so many emotions here. It's just, after this morning we separate. There's no knowing for how long. Uh, okay, maybe why don't I try to chart the progression of the feelings here? So first is like, okay, I heart has been heavy because you have so far to go. So and it's like marriage of a girl away from her parents is the launching of a little boat on a great river. So it's really worried about her. And it's like, then he started to think back. Well, you were very young, and then I was more tender of you. So he's sort of like thinking back of their time together, and then now like the flashback comes back to the present, and so now they are both crying, and they can't separate. Yeah, and it says, but he concludes, yet it is right that you should go. What does it say that? Hmm. Yeah, it is right that you should go. Yeah. So he's saying, hmm, he's trying to convince himself. I mean, he knows it's right. Like, what's not right about the situation, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of natural that she gets married, I guess. So it is right, lah. Yeah. And then he starts worrying again. He starts thinking back again, like, and yeah, I think here he's feeling like sort of inadequate. He's like, oh man, what about this? We didn't manage to do this, but it's actually going to be okay because they're a nice family. And then it's like, and this, even though it looks back again, it's like, wow, but I haven't done as much as I should have, and couldn't give them the dowry. Yeah, like I couldn't. Yeah, like so he feels like he didn't really do his duty, right? As a he wasn't as good as a parent as he would have liked. And then he just says, well, just giving her some advice. I guess he's really like saying this to her, is addressed to her. So just do all these things, like be a good wife. And he says, oh, mm. And then he really is really realizing like, wow, this is what it means. It's like we will see each other again, but you will never know when, right? Because she's living with the husband's family and presumably from pretty far away. So you can't just WhatsApp them, you can't just Zoom them in those days. So it's really wow, it's really like it's a real separation now. Yeah. And then he says he always tries to hide his feelings, but suddenly he just can't control them anymore because he tends to see his daughter crying now. Wow. And maybe it's this outburst of emotion that caused him to write this poem, right? This maybe the end of the poem at the end of the poem is actually the start of the poem, if that makes sense. Like the end of what's going on is what caused him to start writing it. Yeah. Wow, this is so good. I guess I don't know what else to say. Just or if I ever have a daughter, I think I will read this when she gets married. Yeah. Uh, okay, I think that's about it for me from today. And you say it's easy to understand and kind of cute. Yeah, yeah. No deep analysis here, lah, honestly. So yeah, wow. Hmm. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna call it for today. So thanks everyone for coming. And yeah, to I don't know, like, comment, and subscribe, I guess. Because I have obligated to say that. But I think actually the comments actually do help. Like last week's video had like a few comments I think it actually did help. So if I don't know if you enjoyed this, please do say it'll be very helpful if you can comment and say it was a nice stream. Yeah. Or you can say, I don't know, you can say what's your favorite poem for today if you manage to stick throughout the whole thing. And yeah, Kayla, thanks for everything. And I'll see you all next week. All right. Bye bye.